All right, hey everyone, welcome to the Fab Fit Friday before Thanksgiving. We are going to be doing part 3 of the bathrobe sew along. I'm super excited, and I have a little surprise. I don't know if you'll consider it really a surprise, but I'm going to show you how to embroider a decorative buttonhole because my machine is not stitching buttonholes very nicely. I found that out yesterday when I was teaching my last pants fitting class, and I was trying to show how to do a buttonhole, and that really didn't work out. So all my machines need to go in for service. So I think when I'm in a little bit of a holiday lull, if I get a holiday lull, I'm going to bring my machines in to have them serviced because my buttonhole is frightening. So I'll give you tips and I'll show you how to embroider a buttonhole, but I'm also going to show you a decorative buttonhole, which I think will be kind of cool. So we're going to do that, and let me say hi to Meg and Judy. Hi ladies, thank you for joining me. I do want to say I'm super excited because several people emailed me or messaged me pictures of their progress on their bathrobes. It just really makes my day to know that people are sewing along with me. So I thought that was very, very cool. So thank you for either letting me know that you're following along or sending me pictures or whatever. I was so excited to get that kind of feedback. So thank you very much for that. Last week when I did my pockets, I realized I feel very silly about that because they're tiny, and I brought them over to my mom's for her to try her hand, to fit her hand in, and they're way too tiny. So hi Sandy, hi Mary. Mary, I just want you to know that next Wednesday I'm going to find out if Sophie has puppies. So I'll let you guys know. I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to do, I may do a special Fab Fit Friday the day after Thanksgiving, or I may not have Fab Fit Friday. I'm still trying to decide what's happening with my family and what we're doing. So depending on what happens with that, I will let you guys know. I'll put it in the community tab if I'm going to have Fab Fit Friday next week. Good evening from Istanbul. Nilgun, I was watching a movie and some of it was being filmed in Istanbul, so I was so excited to tell my husband that I know somebody from Istanbul. That was so exciting. So that's nice. Let me just start. I know some of you, just by recognizing your names, you guys ordered the pattern. Does anybody have any questions about their bathrobe or things they're working on before I launch into where I am? So, or, and I'll keep my eyeball out for, if you're, if anybody has questions. So what I want to do is just show you here how silly my pocket was from last week. Let me change my view. Picture. All right, so this was my pocket that I sewed with you guys last week. I mean, it's a fine pocket, but it is tiny, so you can see the paper pattern now. I really made it bigger because my mom was going to want to put her tissues in there. So I'm going to sew these later. I'm not going to bore you and do these again, but I guess what I'll do is I'll show you on a scrap how to sew the pocket on, and I'll give you tips for, for doing that. But let's get the bathrobe out here and see where we are. Whoops. I have it on my dress form here. Okay. All right, so if you remember from last week, what we did last week was we finished the neckline and front edge with the facing. Okay, so here's my front edge. Here's the lower corners. Okay, so that's nicely finished. All right, so we have to sew down this facing. We have to do the hem, so we're going to do that. Let me show you what it looks like from the inside. So we have to do the hem, and then I think after we sew this down and do the hem, then what I'm going to do is show you how to place buttons and do buttonholes, and then we'll add the sleeves. And I've already, my sleeves, I decided just to save some time, I've already sewn the underarm seam. Okay, so the underarm seam is sewn. So I'm going to show you how to set these in after we finish doing the top stitching down the facing and doing the hem. And then just a sneak peek, I'll show you. This buttonhole, okay, is going to be the buttonhole I'm going to use for the bathrobe. And one cool way to test your buttonhole to make sure your button is going to fit is to leave it on the card. So see, I've got my button, and then you can button it, you know, through your hole to make sure you like it. And this is a sample, and we'll stitch out the real thing. This is a little bit uneven, so I went in and I fixed it, and I have the real one that's ready to go, and I'll show you how to do that. But the cool thing about this design is that the color of the satin stitch detail on either side of the button actually shows around the button. So I think it almost like it frames the button. I think that's going to make a cool design. And if you don't have an embroidery machine, but you have a machine that has decorative stitches, you could you could sew your buttonholes traditionally and then add a decorative stitch to either side to create something similar if you don't have an embroidery machine. So that's just an idea, but these are the buttons I'm going to use, and I'm going to put 5 buttons on my bathrobe, so we will get to that in a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to put these 2 small pockets away, and I'm going to get my fabric for my new pockets, put that away. Let me just make my view a little bit bigger. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is, let's look at all of this mess. That's better. What we're going to do is we're going to take our, we're going to top stitch the facing to the bathrobe, and I think what I'm going to do just to hold it in place is I'm going to just put some pins, and you can decide for yourself depending on how your machine sews. But when I've been making these bathrobes, this is the 3rd bathrobe now that I've made, I'm going to pin the facing in place, and then I'm going to stitch it from the wrong side so I can make sure I'm right on the edge of my facing. So do a test on your sewing machine to make sure that the bobbin thread is looks nice, you know, the stitch quality looks okay, because sometimes the top thread does look nicer, but I'm going to do it upside down just to make sure I, you know, get right on the edge. And to start, notice I'm laying this nice and flat here. I'm just going to start at the center back, and I'm going to put some pins, you know, because I want to make sure that where I'm stitching it is where it should be laying. So it's important to pin this down at pretty regular intervals so it lays flat. So I'm going to do that. So I'll do this whole back facing first, and then I'll go down the sides. I'm just going to pin. You know, in these kind of steps, you really want to take your time, because then everything will look nicer. I'm going to make sure that my shoulder seam on my facing matches the shoulder seam on the actual bathrobe. I'm just going to make sure this is laying nicely. Alright, so I've got my whole back. Now we'll just start with, I'll work on this side right here. And again, I want to lay it so it's it's going to lay nice. So one thing you can do to help get the shape is to lay it over a ham so you can see the curve of your neckline like this. Okay, so I'm just going to pin, you know, straight through. All right. Oops. All right, so once I get past like this part of the neckline, I'm going to do the other side because it's easy to pin the straight front edges. But you know, just want to make sure this is all laying the way you want it to, because if it's not laying nice and flat and one-to-one with the bathrobe, when you pick it up, there may be some buckling. So I just like to make sure the facing is laying nice and flat. You guys see what I'm doing? Okay. I did get a nice comment from someone who said, hello from France. You know, and she said that they really appreciated my videos in France. I thought that's kind of, I don't know, kind of fun that someone might be talking about J Stern Designs in France. I've never been there. I hope to go someday. All right, so now that I've got this laying nice through the neckline, I can lay it flat on the table. So I'll get rid of my ham. And I'm just going to lay this nice and flat. Okay, because again, I want to make sure when I sew this, it's going to lay nice. Some of this knit may have stretched with all the handling that I've done. I've had it hanging on, you know, I've had it on my dress form all week, so I'm just gonna do my best to make sure it's laying flat. And I think I might actually steam it too. So speaking of steam, I'm just gonna get my lovely Aliso iron out here. I'm just going to plug that in so it heats up. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so I'm just going to continue pinning. See, I'm worried that some of this looks like it's stretched. You can see it kind of buckling, so I'm going to give it some steam before I top stitch it. And the other thing too is, if you're working with that waffle weave fabric, that fabric top stitched like a dream. I had no trouble, you know, getting it to lay nice or worrying about it not, you know, the facing was perfectly fine. All right, so I've got that pinned. Let me pin the other side. Now, if you remember, I interfaced this facing, so when I go to do the buttonholes, I think they'll react nicely because the fabric has been supported by interfacing. And I'm going to use 2 different kinds of wash-away stabilizer when I do the buttonholes through here, but I think for the most part it'll be pretty stable. All right, so let's just get this pinned. I'm a little worried about this. See how it's, I might have stretched it somehow. So this is going to be sort of the troubleshooting section of the class where, you know, if you end up having a stretched out facing, let's see what we can do about it. All right, so I'm going to get my big ironing surface. And I'm just going to lay it down. Let me see. Oh, Diane's pink Aliso arrived and it will be unboxed this weekend. Ooh, that's so exciting, Diane. Congratulations. I really do love this iron, I have to say. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and steam, and I'm gonna turn that touch feature off so I can let it sit for a second, and not have it be popping up and down like a jack-in-the-box here. Now I am laying my iron right on the fabric, but I tested it to make sure that it wouldn't react badly. So see, like steaming it really is helping it lay nice. So see, if you have a little bit of unevenness on your facing, you know, after working with it, it might get stretched out. Just give it some steam. See how nice and flat that is now? Oh, Sally said, thanks for the tip using the waffle weave. I'm still waiting for my fabric to arrive. I ordered it from Lithuania, so it might take a while. Well, that's kind of cool. Very nice. All right, so see how nice and flat it's laying once we give it some steam. I mean, I literally sewed up the waffle weave version with, it was so easy to work with and it was so nice. And my mom loves it. She's been wearing it. Between that and the original one I made her, those are her two favorite things, which kind of makes my heart happy. All right, so I've got one side done. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide it up and I'll do the other side. And then after this, I will also give the front and back neckline a little steam too. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, I'm almost done pressing this. I'm just going to press the start of the hem down here, and then I'll finish pressing that after I finish sewing down the facing. But you can see what's happening here. This part of the hem is just going to lay in there like that. And we'll press that up after. All right, so I've got that. Now I'm going to bring my ham in, and I'm just going to give the facing a little bit of steam here. And then I'll just do around the shoulder like this. All right, and the other shoulder, and then we can get ready to sew this. See how I'm not smushing it flat. I'm trying to keep the shape. Okay. All right, I think we're ready to start sewing now. Let me just get rid of all of this stuff. I'm going to use my Juki straight stitch machine. plug this in. All right. Okay, let me make my view a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. All right, so I just want to double check that my bobbin is a color that goes with my fabric. So see, I have black in there, so I'm glad I checked. Because remember, I'm going to sew it so the right side is against the feed dog, so I have to make sure that my bobbin matches the color. That would not have been good to have black. So let me just wind a quick bobbin here. Sorry about that. That's probably enough. All right, so now I've got gray and gray, which is good. So I'm just going to stick this back in here. Okay. Let me just rethread this really quickly. Sorry, I should have checked this before I got. I should have checked this first before I came on. All right, so let me just thread my needle. Excellent. All right, so now we're gonna start sewing. Just pulling up my bobbin thread. All right, so I'm gonna start. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start on one center back. No, I think I'm gonna start at the hem and go around in a circle because I don't want the bulk of my bathrobe in between my machine. So I'm just gonna stitch so that I'm stitching sort of right down the middle of my serged edge. My stitch length is about 2.5. Back there. Now remember, my facing is interfaced and my bathrobe isn't, so if there's any give to the fabric, it's going to be helped along by the feed dogs. The other thing is, notice I put my pins so I don't have to take them out as I go. I was thinking a design variation to this bathrobe. If you wanted to sew the facings to the wrong side and flip them to the right side and top stitch them down, that would be very cool too. And then like you could use some baby piping or something to finish the edge. All right, so here I did not put it where the pins are not in the way. All right, so I'm going to go slow around my curves. I can speed along on the straightaways, but whenever there's a curve, I like to go really slow. So notice I'm managing my fabric. I'm making sure it's laying nice and flat and it's like, I'm guiding it by keeping it nice and organized before the presser foot. The other thing is I'm not letting the fabric hang off the end of the table either. You want to make sure you're supporting your fabric so it's not pulling on the fabric as you sew. Okay. All right, I'm at the other shoulder seam. Okay. All right, so now I'm coming to the straightaway again. I'm just gonna stitch right down this other side. Let's just take that out. Okay. Oh, we're almost to the end. Ooh, this is exciting. Let's take a look at it from the right side. I'm going to push that over here. Let me get my ironing surface. Okay. Let me just make it a little bit wider view. Okay, let's see how this looks from the right side. We'll start here. All right, so I think what we need to do is give it some nice steam. Oops. Oh my. Oh, for God's sakes. Just get my cord here from around the machine. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give this some nice steam. I think that looks nice. So there's the point, the end. When I used to teach at Sanford Brown Sanford Brown College in the fashion department, I used to always tell my students, I used to say, the magic of pressing, because they weren't happy like with a seam or something. I said, well, let's give some steam to it and see how that looks. Pressing always makes things look better. Okay, I'm going to get right in here, the very end, or the top of my center front. Okay, right here. Then I'm going to get my ham over here, and I'm going to use that to press the curves. Okay, now we're going to go around the back. Okay, so see how nice that looks? So here's an example of how it looks pressed. unpressed. You can see it's a little bit ripply, but it steams right out. And like I said, when I was working with the waffle weave, I did not have to press. I didn't even have to press it. It laid nice. I mean, I think giving it some steam is always a good idea, but some fabrics are going to be less likely to need a lot of pressing. This is a knit, so it needs some pressing. All right, so now I'm going to come across the other front. I'm going to put my touch back on. Okay. All right, and then I'm just going to do this top part right here. And I see this is where I left my pins. I'm just going to take these pins out so I don't prick myself. All right, so let me just give the rest of this some steam. This is exciting. So after we finish pressing this, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to press up the hem. And you'll notice on mine, I did not serge that bottom edge, and I'm okay with that. It's not going to ravel, it's not going to go anywhere. So let's turn this to the right side now. And I'll start over here. And I'm just going to press the edge up. Now, actually, before I do that, I'm noticing that some of my, some of the interfacing is showing on the right side of the hem. So let me just go through and make sure, you know, as I go, there isn't any interfacing peeking out. And I might as well just trim this off here, this tail. And then again, I just want to, oh, see, it's just a little bit right here in the front. Just going to trim that off so it doesn't show. Okay. Yeah, it's just that little bit. And then I have this weird little joggy thing right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's like this weird little peak right here. So I'm just going to even that up a little bit. All right. All right, so if you remember last week, I was working on, when I was working on the facings, the facing pieces were too short. Well, I checked my pattern and they matched perfectly on my pattern, so I don't know what I did. I might have cut the ends of the, you know, trimmed the ends of the facings off at the bottom after I cut them out because the pattern pieces were correct. So I'm really not sure what happened there. All right, so I'm going to just work from seam to seam. So this is where the center front is. And I'm just going to make sure when I press it up at the side seam here that I'm not pulling the fabric along as I go. So I want to just flip it up and press it. And then I'll probably just stick a few pins in there to hold it. And actually I'm going to actually sew from the right side this time because I can feel the lump or the edge of the fabric from the right side. So I'm actually going to put my pins on the right side of the fabric down here because I know I can accurately do that, and I'll show you. So I'm going to work from the side seam to the center back. Okay, so from seam to seam, I'm going to flip that up. You know, and there is a little fullness to this bathrobe, so the hem might be a little bit wider than, you know, the bathrobe you're sewing it to. So I think having this against the feed dogs will help it ease in. Okay, so I'm just going to press that up, and again, I'm going to take my pins and I'm just going to keep pinning from the right side once it's pressed. You know, a good tip is to use your vertical seams as a guide to make sure you're folding your hem up straight with itself. All right, so now I have this section here from my side seam to center back. So I'm just going to stick some pins underneath. This one I forgot to put underneath. Let me just switch it. All right, so we're almost done hemming. I hope this hemming isn't putting you to sleep. I just finished a 10-week pants fitting class, and we recorded all of the classes so students would have them available to rewatch. And you know, I was kind of surprised, like people like to just watch me do stuff. You know, so sometimes I know I keep saying this. Sometimes I feel like I'm just being boring by doing something that's sort of a boring step, but all right, so this is not ideal. This facing is sticking down like a tiny bit lower. I don't think I'm going to fix it though. I think in the big scheme of things it's going to be okay. Just cut this thread. All right, so I think I'm going to be happy with that. Just put some pins. All right, so we're going to go to the sewing machine now, and I'm going to do this hem. Okay. All right, let me get my sewing machine back over here. All right, so I'm going to sew from the right side. And I'm going to put the whole bathrobe in my lap so it's not hanging down. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start hemming or sewing right at the seam where my facing was sewn down. So I'm not going to start over here. I'm going to just start right where that seam is. And my hem is an inch, approximately an inch. So I'm going to do it at 3/4 of an inch, but I can also feel it through the fabric. It's kind of thick fabric. So again, we're just going to stitch along here. I'm going to back tack, and I'm just going to slowly make my way around. I'm just going to take my time. If you guys have a cover stitch machine, you could use that to do the hem. Oh, Neil Gunn says, for me, I'm a new sewer, it's very helpful to see every step. Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I guess that's the purpose of my Fab Fit Friday. I just want to show you processes of what I do. So, but just know sometimes if something's taking a long time and it's relatively you know, a relatively simple step. Sometimes on the inside, I'm just thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I hope they're not falling asleep watching me. so I'm just going to go a little at a time here. Now remember, I also put that fusible interfacing along the bottom edge too to help with the stretching. Now when you go over the seams, if they're starting to push, like if the fabric's pushing, lift up the presser foot, let it relax, and then put it back down. That can help with the transition across the seam. Coming to another seam, so I'm going to stitch onto it. I'm going to lift it up, let the fabric relax, put it back down, take a couple more stitches, lift the presser foot, let it relax, take a couple more stitches, lift the presser foot, let it relax. And again, if you're working on a woven fabric, hemming this is going to be a breeze. I'm working on this knit and it is a little fussy, so I'm just trying to take my time. Okay. Ooh, I'm coming up to the side seam. Okay, so again, let's lift up the presser foot, let it relax. Lift up the presser foot, let it relax. Lift up the presser foot, let it relax. You can do that on the serger as well. Let me just see here. Lazaros says, "Hi Jen, if I may, I'm guessing you cut your facing pattern in fabric and interfaced and then press them together. Interfacing could have shrunk. It does that sometimes." Well, that is true, except I pre-shrink all of my interfacing. So I do have a video on my YouTube showing how to do that. If you're working with an interfacing that has a high rayon content, sometimes it does shrink. I don't pre-shrink things that are 100% polyester or nylon, but if you have rayon in your interfacing, it could shrink a little bit. And actually, it used to be the rule that you should pre-shrink all your interfacing, but I think interfacings have gotten a lot better now, so I don't think it's super important all the time. But just check and see if you have any rayon, a significant amount of rayon in your interfacing. That I would soak in hot water for about 10 minutes and then roll it in a towel and hang it over your shower curtain. That would be the cliff notes of that YouTube video. Sally says, "I am watching how you are sewing from the top and feel the hem bump as you sew. That seems really basic but very helpful for me to know about." And then let me just scroll down here. Hold on. Milgun says, "I don't have a cover stitch machine, but is it okay if I use a twin needle?" Absolutely. And if you need help with twin needle, how to do a twin needle, in my I have a free class, How to Sew My Yoga Pants Pattern, and it's in a playlist. And the last video in that class shows how to do a hem using a twin needle. So if you want to use a twin needle, by all means. And if your fabric has some stretch to it, actually a twin needle is not a bad idea, because when you use a twin needle, you're using 2 spools of thread through the top, and the bobbin thread is zigzags in between the 2 needles, and there's some built-in stretch there, so you don't have to worry about the stretch of your fabric with a twin needle. So that's actually a very good idea. So I'll put a link to how to do a hem with a twin needle in the description below when I get off later. Okay. Now I'm thinking I should have thought of that because I could have showed you that in the sew along. That's a really good idea, Nilgren. I like it. Oh, Nilgun, sorry. Nilgun. Okay. All right, so I'm getting to my finish here. I'm almost there. I feel like the fabric, see how the fabric looks like it's fighting me? I'm going to take it out and look and see what it's doing. Yeah, see how all of a sudden it started to get a little bit funky? I think what I'm going to do is put it in from this way. I'm going to stitch the rest of it going in this direction. Now I really have to feel because I don't have any lines on my plate. I'm not sure why it's doing that. I'm gonna, isn't that funny? Look at just right here. I'm just gonna take out a little bit of it. A minute. I should have taken it out before I put it back in. All right, do you guys know the ball of your, this ball on your seam ripper is the side that you should stick in when you're using it to try to, you know, just trim threads in between. So if you stick the ball in, that keeps the point from cutting. So I can just do it this way. I was going to take a little bit of it out so I can sew it in the opposite direction, and maybe that will help that stretch. So my general rule is if something looks like it's starting to go funky, don't keep going. You know, stop and look at what's happening, and then maybe you can salvage it by, you know, either coming in from the other side, or maybe you need some more stabilizer. I just think I can fix this if I just come in from this other side. All right, so I took out the most of what was doing this weird stretching thing all of a sudden. And I'm going to sew from this direction, and let's see if that kind of fixes it. Yeah, see, it's not doing that going this way. That's kind of weird. All right, let's just finish this up here. Okay, I'm just going to meet where I started. I mean, where I stopped. Ooh, I don't want a little bubble. So this is Real Adventures in Sewing. Plus I'm having a hot flash. I'm just going to take out this little bit more here so I can let it relax and hopefully not get a bubble. Maybe a tiny bubble. We'll see. All right, let's see what's what. Oh, Mary asked, are you running out of bobbin thread? My machine acts like that when the bobbin gets low. No, Mary, I actually just filled the bobbin up to start this project because I had black in there, so that wasn't it, but that is really weird because it was doing great until that last few inches. Oh, see, and I did pinch it a little bit here. I might have to take that out and fuss with it. Let me see. But it is interesting to see that when I switched the direction, it laid flatter. I'm just going to need to fix this right here. Let me just make it a little bigger so you can see. Okay. Let's steam it and see how it's going to look. All right, let's see. All right, yeah, I'm probably gonna have to, afterward, I'm gonna take out probably like a, maybe like a 4 or 5 inch area right here and fix that. So I'll do that later though. All right, so let me just steam the rest. Yeah, except for that one little place, it really did come out nice. All right, so since we're on the hemming vibe, the next thing we're going to do is hem the sleeves. So before I put the sleeves in, let's hem them. All right. All right, so while I'm doing that, I'm just going to put my bathrobe on my dress form so it doesn't get wrinkled. So, yeah, the hem lays nice and straight, so that's good. I just have to fix that one. Area that got screwed up there. All right, let's get the sleeves. Okay, so like I said, I already sewed the underarm seam, and I am going to use my sleeve board. This is a really, really nice tool to have because it makes turning up hems really easy. All right, so I'm gonna just get my little pressing mat here. All right, so I'm gonna use this, my antique sleeve board, and I'm going to put it on like this. And so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna turn this hem up. And before I do that though, I'm going to give my underarm seam a little bit of a press. This is an example of when you need a new knife. See these little things I have here? I can pick them off, but my knife was catching my knit and leaving these little chads. All right, so I'm just going to give this a little bit of a press. Then I'm going to turn up my hem and give that a little press. And I think I'm going to put it on this way so the wider part, I can get it to the wider part here. Or actually, I can just put it right here so I can get the most bang for my buck. All right, so one of the benefits of putting a strip on your hem is I can roll it back, and then when it hits that bottom edge of actually it's the top edge of the interfacing, it stops. So it also helps me create a nice even hem. Okay, so I'm just gonna press this. Mary, that was a good thing to mention about the bobbin thread though, because even though that wasn't what was happening with my machine, it's good for people to know, like when your bobbin thread gets low, that can make your machine so yucky. I think sometimes the tension on the beginning thread when it starts to wind can get a little wonky. All right, so there's one hem. Okay, I'm going to do the other one. And again, first I'm going to press my underarm seam. Cut this thread. All right. Again, I have these little chad things. Okay. All right. All right, and then I'm going to stick it on this wider end to turn it up. All right, so now we are going to hem the sleeve. Okay. So let me stick this back here, get my machine. All right, so let me just get closer view. Hold on. All right, so what we're going to do now is, I like to sew inside the circle. So basically, I'm going to just do it the same way that I did the other hem, you know, the hem. And I'm just going to put some pins on the right side just to keep everything from, you know, going wonky here. Just a few pins. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start like right in front of my underarm seam, and see how I'm sewing inside the circle. That way I can see everything that I have. If I try to sew outside the circle, sometimes you can catch something from underneath. So sewing inside the circle makes it easier to see everything. Okay, so I'm going to just feel for my my hem edge. I'm just going to start stitching. Okay, and I'm coming to that first seam, so I'm going to lift it up, let it relax, take a couple more stitches, let it relax, take a couple more stitches, let it relax. Okay. Another option is you could hem this while it's still flat and then sew your underarm seam. So if you're a little worried about working in a tight circle, you can hem it flat and then sew your seam after. Alright, well, I'm at the start point, so I'm just going to overlap my start point a couple stitches and just back tack a couple stitches. Alright, so there's one. Let me just quickly do the other one. You know, and I really don't think I need pins, so I'm just going to go pinless here. Okay. So I'm lifting this up, lifting it up. Okay. All right, I'm getting there. right. Okay, our sleeves are hemmed. This is getting exciting. I'm just gonna go through and give this a little bit of a press. And I think I'm done with my straight stitch machine, so I'm gonna put that away. Okay, we're just gonna do a quick press of this hem, and then we're gonna move on to the next thing. Oh, PG says, if you have a walking foot or an integrated foot, would that help keep the hem smooth? Yes. If you want to use your walking foot, that would help. And actually, if you have a Pfaff or a Viking that has, and I think a lot of brands have it now, like it's called like a dual feed or a built-in walking foot, or I know Pfaff calls theirs their IDT. Those things always make your sewing easier. But my sleeve, for some reason, didn't have any problem. Like it almost doesn't even need a press, because it behaved really well. Oh, here's a little bit. That's a good suggestion, PG. Okay. All right, let me just do the other one, and then we're going to, I think the next thing I'm going to do is show you how I'm going to place my buttonholes, and I'm going to show you the embroidered button that I'm going to do. And then after the buttonholes are done, the last thing is to put the sleeves on. I like to work with the smallest piece of, the smallest garment or part of the garment as possible. So I do, as much as I can, while it's small. Okay. All right. Yay. All right. So those are our hems on our sleeves. Okay. All right, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to put my sleeves aside. Let me just check in with people here. Okay, Sandy says, I am glad you ran into the little problem because it doesn't make me feel so bad about problems I run into, which sometimes are often due to my head injury. Oh, Sally, Sandy, thank you so much for joining me. And I just want to say that wherever you are and however you are in your sewing journey, just taking the time to make things and working on them, it doesn't, you just be gentle with yourself. I make more mistakes than probably most of you combined, because 9 times out of 10 I am rushing and I am sewing like a bat. So if you just slow down a little bit and just take your time, and then if something is not working, sort of sit back and look at it and say, what can I do to, make this stitch smoother or whatever. So just, I'm glad you're joining me. And please, if you guys ever have any issues where, you can't figure out what's going on, definitely post comments, because those are really turning into my Fit Tip Tuesday videos. For example, someone asked me how to add a sleeve to the bias play top, which was a top I did for the Cool Stitches subscription box, Your Wardrobe. So on Tuesday next week, I'm going to show the easiest way to add a sleeve to a knit garment if it's a sleeveless garment. So definitely post your questions and comments, because I'll help you. All right, so now I am going to... Oh, and and the other thing too, let me say one more thing. It doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful, okay? As long as the overall effect of your garment you're working on, 9 times out of 10 is going to be lovely, even if there's a few snafus in the way. So I try not to get bent about having, making mistakes, or if things aren't perfect, I don't, I'm not going to worry about it too much. All right, so I'm going to put my sleeves over here for now. And I'm going to get rid of my iron for now. And I am going to get my bathrobe back over here. And, oops, I am going to show you how to place buttonholes. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fold it like this. I'm going to get it all nice and organized here so you can see the effect of it. Okay, so it's going to be right over left, so really this is my right. So I'm just going to just lay it out as if I were going to button it. Just going to clip this thread. Okay, so there's my neckline. It's going to go together like this. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I want to make sure I put a button somewhere over here, because my mom's full bust is somewhere a little bit below her armhole. So somewhere right here, that's where my first button's gonna go. And generally, you know, when you're putting buttons on a garment, you want to put them so you have one going across the strain where there might be some stress or strain. So through your apex would be the first place to place a button. Let me just see here. Meg says, oops, what happened to my live? Am I still live? My thing just skipped. Oh, did I screw that up? Oh, my thing did a funny thing. I'm sorry. Meg says, yay, the School Stitches subscription box for Daystern Designs is how I became introduced to your patterns. Can't wait to learn how to draft a sleeve for the top. Oh, was that you that asked me that, Meg? I think it is. I forgot. Yes, Meg asked me that. All right, so yay. Yay, Meg. I'm going to do that for Tuesday. Oh, thank you, Diane. For some reason, my whole live producer blinked off the screen, like the whole tab closed on my browser, so I don't know what happened. But anyway, I'm going to be answering Meg's question for how to add a sleeve to a knit top on Tuesday. So, yay. All right. Excellent. All right, so getting back to our buttons here, you want to put your first, you know, you want to plan it so your first buttonhole is going to go approximately where your apex is. So I'm going to put a button right here, and of course my buttonholes are going to go on the right side because it's right over left. So this is the side that the buttons will get sewn onto. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a chalk marker. Let me just find that. Oh, here it is. Yay. It's not lost. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a ruler, and I am going to measure straight down my edge here to, I would say, probably about 10 inches. Yeah, probably about 10 inches. That's where the start of a buttonhole is going to go. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a horizontal line. I don't understand what's going on with my thing. So I'm going to put a vertical there. So the button is going to, I'm going to start stitching it here, and it's going to go down this way. Okay. And the buttons I'm going to be using, again, are these small little buttons. What did I do with them? I know they're not lost. I just have to find what I did with them. Where did I put them? Okay, so here's a button. Okay, and so I'm going to probably put them pretty close to the edge. Okay, so I'll probably put them like right there. All right, so that's where the button, how it's going to button. So I'm going to put one here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure up from this line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my buttons are going to be spaced approximately 7 inches apart. I'm going to put my first button right there. Oh, maybe it should be a little bit higher. I'm going to put my first button right there so it buttons like that, you see. And then, so it's going to be up higher right there. And then I'm going to go down 7 inches. So I'm just going to raise this one up slightly. That's going to be fine. So I'm going to do my buttons 7 inches apart. So one will go there, then the next one will go there, and then the next one will go down there. I think for a bathrobe you don't need to have like a ton of buttons to, you know, because it's a loose fitting garment. You don't want to be spending all day buttoning and unbuttoning your bathrobe. And I know from my mom, this is already borderlining on a little bit of a button that might be a little bit small for her. But I didn't want to get a heavy button because I didn't want it to weigh down this knit. So this is like a cork button. It's kind of a cool button, and it's lightweight, and I think it's a good size and weight for the fabric, because I made my mom actually another bathrobe I haven't talked about. It was made from a cotton linen blend, and I picked big buttons for it so it would be easy for her to button, and the buttons were too heavy for the bathrobe, so I have to replace those with something lighter. So when you pick your buttons, make sure they're make sure they go with or look the way you want them to look on your fabric, but also make sure they're not too heavy for your fabric, because then that, is not good. So here's what I'm going to do. If I were doing buttons traditionally on the sewing machine, what I would do is I would actually make myself a guide, and I think it's going to be 5/8 of an inch away from the front edge, and you can just draw a line down the middle. Okay, so this is, the button is going to go along this line, and it's going to start here. So I like to make T shapes for my guides. So again, I'm going to do another one here, 5/8 of an inch. Okay, and then I'm just gonna mark all the way down. So here's my next one, is going to be 7 inches away. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I can just say 7 right here. And then I'm going to make my 5/8 of an inch away. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3. Actually, at 7 inches apart, I'm only going to need 4 buttons. So, you know what? Maybe I'm gonna. No, I'm just gonna leave it like that for this one. Just 5/8. Yep. All right, so I'm gonna go 7 inches away, down to here, and I'm gonna mark 5/8. So this actually just has 4 buttons. You can make your buttons as close together as you want. I know that for my mom it's hard for her to button buttons, so I try to keep them, as little as possible. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to show you this button. I'm going to show you how to embroider a button hole on your garment. So if any of you have embroidery machines, and if you want, like, let's say you see this buttonhole and you like it, and you're going to be using I believe this is a 3/4 inch button. So like probably, 19 millimeters. I will put this button in my online store. I'll put a link to it. So if you guys want to get this buttonhole, I will have it for you for free. I'll do it sometime over the weekend because I have some other things to do when I get off today. But I'll put this buttonhole that I'm going to show you in my store. You could have it for free. And the only thing is I can't do Bernina format because I don't have Bernina software, and they're so proprietary that I can't save it as an art format, but I can save it as all the other formats. So this is a wash away mesh stabilizer, aqua mesh from OESD. I'm going to use a piece of that. And I never hoop my fabric. I always hoop the stabilizer. So I'm going to put my stabilizer in here like this. And then I'm going to put this here. And then I'm going to cut off this extra strip down here, and I'm going to use it as a double layer. So I'm going to put that in there like that. And then I think I can drag my embroidery machine closer. This is my old trusty faithful FOF 2170. It's probably close to 20 years old, and it still works so well. I'm going to use a periwinkle blue cotton thread for my buttonholes. And let me just get my design up here so you can see what it looks like. Okay, it's this one. Alright, so I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm just going to switch my hoop here. Okay, so let me just show you on the screen what it looks like. So it's got those two little satin stitch designs on either side of it. So let me show you now. I'm going to hoop my hoop, and I'm going to initialize my machine. And I can probably use this hoop to do all 4 buttonholes. Oh, Meg has a FOF 7530 purchased in 1999. Oh, Mary has to go. Well, thank you for joining me, Mary. I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. And I will see if I'm going to do something on Friday or not. But thank you for joining me, and happy Thanksgiving. I learned my first embroidery machine was the FOF 7570. I loved that machine. All right, so I can probably use this one hoop to do all 4 buttonholes, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to drag my buttonhole up to the upper hand corner. Okay, so I'll embroider one here, one here, one here, and one here. And I have this feature, whoops, I have a feature on this FOF 7570 where it'll allow me to pick the upper corner. Oh, but that's not going to help me really. I got to go in the middle of my buttonhole. So I'm going to pick the spot on my design that I want to use to center. So I'm basically picking the upper top section of the button. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my fabric into the hoop. Okay, like this. And I'm going to make sure my needle is up at the top where the top of that T is, because that's how I have it positioned. And then in addition to using that stabilizer on the bottom, I'm going to use a piece of this. This is a wash away topper, and that's going to help the support the fabric as well. So I've got my needle centered at the top of my guide. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to also baste in the hoop, which I love this feature because it will show me if it's going to stitch right. Oops, hold on. I'm going to move this over to here. All right, so I'm stitching around. And this basting will help me this basting will show me that, number one, it's in the right spot, but number two, it's straight with the garment. And then I'm just going to press go. And I'm just going to cut my threads here. And that will embroider that buttonhole. Jane says, for people who have trouble with buttons, check out adaptive clothing. There's a lot of ways to adapt regular clothes for all sorts of challenges. Oh, Jane, that's a really good tip. Thank you for sharing that. I've been trying all sorts of things. My mom is still okay with buttons, but you know, as things progress, I'm going to be working on different solutions for her. All right, so see how lovely that came out? See, and see how quick it was too? Like, really and truly, you can embroider your buttonholes very quickly. And the cool thing about doing embroidered buttonholes is you don't have to worry about the presser foot, the feed dogs feeding your fabric, because it stitches out like an embroidery. So it really makes nice, even buttonholes. Okay. All right, so to make the most of this stabilizer, what I'm going to do is, the first thing is I'm going to get rid of my basting. Then I'm going to cut just right around the embroidery design itself to make the smallest hole possible. And I'm not going to finish embroidering these because I want to show you how to do the sleeves. But if anybody has trouble, with their buttonholes, please let me know, and I will help you. Everybody has a different embroidery, a different sewing machine. So your process for doing your buttonholes is going to be different depending on what kind of machine you have. But just, space them out. And like I said, I will put this buttonhole in my store, at my J Stern Design store. So if you'd like to have it, you can. So that's the buttonholes. And then let me just show you the last thing we're going to do today. Oh, I'm going to do two more things. First, we're going to put the sleeves in, and then I'm going to show you a way to figure out where your pocket should go. Okay, so those are the last two things we'll do quick. And I'll do one sleeve, and then I'll show you the pockets, because it's already 2:30. So, and if you have to go, I understand. So, but let me just get my sleeve. All right, so the way, if you marked your notches, you can see here, I used a pencil and I marked my notches. So 2 notches is for back, 1 notch is for front. And then I also have the shoulder notch here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have my sleeve be right side out, and my garment is going to be inside out like this. Let me just make it a little bigger so you can see. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my new favorite notion that I got, my Wonder Clips. Okay, these, to pin it together. And I'm going to start on this side. So I know that this is my front, right? So I'm going to find the sleeve that has the notches coordinate with it. So I know that this is my front here. So I'm going to match my underarm seam with my side seam first. And I'm going to shove the whole sleeve into the armhole like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is line up my underarm seam with my side seam, like that. Then I'm going to match my notches. So my front notch goes to my front notch. And my back notch goes to my back notch, like this. And the reason why I like these Wonder Clips for doing sleeves is because they don't fall off. So I can like pick this up, I can put the other sleeve in before I go to the serger, and they stay really secure. If you get the real Wonder Clips, there are some imposter or off brands that aren't as firm, you know, but the Wonder Clips, the original Wonder Clips, are wonderful. All right, so I'm matching this upper notch with the shoulder seam. You know, then I'm just going to see what's going on. Go lay down. Go lay down. Go lay down. Go. My dog wants to join the live stream. All right, so I'm just going to put like one other clip here. Maybe right here. You shouldn't have to gather the sleeve up. There's not that much ease in the cap. So see, something like this, so there's a little bit on either side. From notch to notch, it's 1 to 1. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just put one more Wonder Clip right here. And then actually, because it's so quick, I'm just going to do my second one, because it literally will take me 2 minutes to do them both. So again, I'm going to match my underarm seam with my side seam. Jane says, my sewing machine is very basic, just one type of buttonhole, and it's not very pretty. All right, so you could use, do you have any decorative stitches on your, sewing machine, Jane? Like even a simple decorative stitch, because you can put together some decorative stitches with your simple buttonhole to liven it up. And what you also have to remember is when your garment is buttoned, you can't really see the buttonhole anyway. So, you know, while it's buttoned up, no one's going to even really notice the buttonhole. So that's another thing to consider. So don't get too, you know, as long as they sew out neatly, it doesn't matter if they're fancy, because the whole idea is, you know, you just need a hole for the button to go in. All right, so I've got all these pinned. Oh, you know what would be another good option? How about a bound buttonhole? You know, maybe I'll do, all right, so let's say next Friday, I think I'll be able to come on. I don't think my Thanksgiving plans are going to be oozing into Friday. I'll do during Fab Fit Friday next week, I'll do some, maybe some detailed things, like how to do a bound buttonhole, because you can do that and you don't need any buttonhole, you know, stitch buttonhole. So maybe that'll be a good idea. I'll do some different detail things on Friday. You know, I'll do a bound buttonhole and I'll see what else I can add to it, because a bound buttonhole would be a nice option if you don't have a machine that does, you know, that does nice buttonholes. And certainly the reason why I embroidered mine today is because my machine is not working right to do buttonholes. So I understand the agita of buttonholes. All right, I'm going to get my serger. And then I'm going to just plug it in, and I'm going to show you how to sew these sleeves. All right, so Okay, so Jane does have some decorative stitches. Well, Jane can think about combining them, but I will try to come up with some things for next Friday that will help come up with some ideas. All right, so I'm going to sew these sleeves in now, and I'm going to start just behind my underarm and side seam here. I'm going to have to take this pin out, I think. So I'm going to just put my sleeve in there, and I'm going to put my needles down, and I just want to get myself situated so I know it's going to stitch. So I'm making sure that the edge of the sleeve, armhole, and cap are parallel to the edge and just brushing against the knife. So I'm going to start stitching. And again, you can see sewing inside the circle really helps. And basically, I am just sewing from pin to pin. So I'm just paying attention to what's going on between the pins. Like I said, there really is not a lot of ease in this cap, so it should be fairly easy to sew. Alright, so I think I've showed this a few times, but it's a good practice here. When I get to my start point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going until I cut off my thread. Like this. I'm going to cut my tail. After my tail's cut off, I'm going to put my knife down, and I'm going to keep going till I overlap my stitching just a little bit. Then I'm going to lift my presser foot up. I'm going to push the fabric out from under the presser foot and off the stitch fingers. And then I'm going to put my presser foot down and chain off. And see, what happens with that is you're chaining off, and you're not just veering off the edge of the fabric. So this is a neat way to get a start-stop without it looking messy. So let me just show you that one more time. It'll just take me a second to do this, and then I'll give you some tips for putting in the pockets. Somebody sent me pictures. One of the people who sent me pictures of their progress are actually going to use covered buttons. So they're going to self-cover the buttons with the fabric, and they're going to use a contrasting bias tape to trim the edge of the pockets. I thought that was an excellent idea. All right, so let me just do this one. Oh, I forgot to put my knife back up. Remember to put your knife back up after you put it down. All right. Okay, so I'm coming to the shoulder seam. We're almost done. Okay. Okay, almost done here. Coming up to my start point. Alright, so here's my tail. Cut it off, put my knife down, overlap my stitching, lift it up, push it back, put the presser foot down, and chain off. Okay. Whoops. All right, this is exciting. What I'm going to do now is, let me just see. Diane says, I noticed you placed the clips red and white flat side differently. Does it make a difference? I always thought the white side should be against the bed of the machine. You know, you're probably right on that, Diane. I wasn't even paying attention to that. I'm so new to these clips that, see what Diane's talking about is it's got a red curve side. So if you put the white side down, it'll be flat on the machine versus doing this, which is not quite as smooth traveling. So put your clips so the flat sides go against the machine. I'm going to go with that. I think that's true. May says you could do snaps. You can absolutely do snaps. And I think I did. It might have been one of my Fab Fit Fridays that got lost when my Facebook account got hacked, but I think I did show how to do snaps. All right, so I'm going to add that to my list. If you guys think of little details that you want me to show that might help with this bathrobe, put them in the comments, and then next Friday I will do like a Fab Fit Friday special detail edition where I'll show some different things. So I'll show the bound buttonhole. I'll show a basic buttonhole with maybe a separate decorative stitch and snaps. That's a good idea. Well, Diane said it didn't matter so much on the serger, but I see what you're saying though. But you get in the habit. So get in the habit of putting the clips flat side face down against the machine. So when you're on your sewing machine, they'll just slide along better. I think that's a good tip. All right, so what I'm going to do now is, let me just show you one other thing here. I'm going to switch my view to me, and I'm going to put this bathrobe on, and I'm going to show you when I'm going to decide where the pockets go. Sometimes the easiest way to decide that is to put your bathrobe on, and then just decide, like, you know, what height you would like those pockets. So see, I can like put my arm, and so I can say, oh, okay, so I want the top of my pocket to be, you know, approximately here. So I'm just going to clip that with a pin, you know, to mark my position. So that's going to be the top of my pocket. So let's take it off and look at it. And I'm just going to move my serger out of the way here. Alright, so let's just look at this quickly. I'm going to switch my view back. Okay, let me just make it big. Okay, so, alright, so let me show you what I did here. Alright, so see, so I clipped this pin right here. So that means I'm going to want to have the top of my pocket, you know, be right there. And actually, for my mom, I think it would have to be a couple inches higher because she's got shorter arms than me. So if I were going to be using these weenie pockets I made, you know, figure out where the top is going to be and then position your pocket. And then you can just top stitch it on. So that's, you know, that's really all I have to say about pockets. I think since I'm going to be coming on and doing some more details for this bathrobe project, maybe I'll show you how to top stitch these on next Friday. So I will have my buttonholes completed, so I will show you those, and then I'll have some samples of some other ways to make closures. A basic buttonhole, decorative buttonhole, bound buttonhole, snaps, and I will finish these pockets, and I think what I'll do is I'll show you how to sew them on next week, because my dad told me I didn't have to give my mom this bathrobe right away, because now that she has 3 of them, I can save this for Christmas, so I have no rush to finish this. So we will have a bonus detail bathrobe sew along next week. And I just want to say I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. You hung out with me for almost 2 hours. That was so nice of you to spend your time with me. So if you think of something after we're done that you think might be fun for this bathrobe, please, post it below and I'll add it to my list. And I hope you guys have a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving. Please be safe. And yeah, so I'm excited. And really, if you send me pictures of your bathrobes, I'd love to see what you're doing. That's fun too. Or if you post them on Instagram, you can tag me, and I can see them that way too. So if you're working on something and you want to tag J Stern Designs on Instagram, then I can see them that way too. So anyway, all right. So I guess I'm all done. And if you have any questions, post them. I will see you for how to add a sleeve to a sleeveless knit top for Fit Tip Tuesday this week. And then I'll see you on Friday for a details for the bathrobe bonus part 4. All right, so have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you again really soon.